kind of unfortunate that I cannot be with you. It's just, I'm from Germany, Munich, so greetings from Germany to Canada, to Toronto. But it's I hope someone is able to just boot up the game so you can actually play it. So first of all, let me tell you who I am. So my name is Richard Löwenstein. I was born in Munich, in Germany, in Bavaria actually. I've moved to Landsberg am Lech, which is a very small town in close to the Alps, so a very beautiful place. I created a couple of Commodore 64 games from 85 to 91. Nothing you really should have played, to be honest. Twinkie Goes Hiking. Persian Gulf Inferno might be a known name to some people, probably. In 92, in late 91, I switched sides and went to the editorial side of things. So I was to become editor of Amiga Joker magazine, which is actually Germany's and probably Europe's biggest Amiga games magazine at that time. And I stayed there till 2000, and then did a couple of other jobs. Founded a magazine called 360 Live, which is about Xbox 360. In 2015, I returned to Homebrew game development and created 3 shoot 'em up games, which are all called Reshoot because I lack the fantasy to think about some alternative names. So they're all called Reshoot, Reshoot R, and Reshoot Proxima 3. This is my testing device. This is my Commodore Amiga 1200. The reason why I started homebrew development in 2015 was that I moved to another place, to Landsberg am Lech, and I decided to get rid of almost all of my collection. I had an Amiga 4000. I had like 3 Commodore 64 and some other things like CD32, but I got rid of all of that while we moved places, and the only machine that I kept with me was this Commodore Amiga 1200 that you see in the picture. And I restored that device, and I also tried to restore all the disks that I had and also the hard drive, just to to get back a little bit into development. And the first project that I started when the machine was back in like new basically, and when all the disks and all the development disks were restored, was trying to develop a game which was to be called Reshoot, and that was it took me 1 year to develop that. It was just like a proof of concept if I can do that, and it took me 1 year. We released it. I learned a lot of lessons about developing games on Amiga, and that's why when I decided to do another game called Reshoot R, which we released 3 years later, and again learned a lot of lessons. And that's when I decided to do a real modern game, which was to be called Reshoot Proxima 3, which took me like 4 years to develop, and which was released in October of 23. So why even care about Reshoot Proxima 3? So Lucas, if you want to start the video, that would be a great time now. Lucas, I cannot hear you.
Sorry, I'm muted. I'm going to play it now.
Okay, great.
But the audio might come from my laptop.
When you're back.
Okay. Let's avoid this boring.
Okay,
That was
did it
great.
work?
Yes.
Yeah, you liked it?
Very good. I
Thank
love
you,
it.
guys. Yeah, so this is Reshoot Proxima 3. It's very obviously a vertical shoot 'em up game. It's written for any basic Commodore EGA hardware, which is like the H500, the A4000, the Commodore CD32. It does also run on a like a Mr. hardware, for example, which is actually the device that I used for testing most of the time, and it kind of works on the A500 Mini with some audio issues. But other than that, the game basically runs on vanilla hardware. So it does require like 2 megabytes of chip memory, but nothing else. No fast memory needed, no expansion whatsoever needed. So you can actually, it's been released on a CD-ROM, which is CD32 compatible. So you can just put that into your CD32 console and just boot the game up, and it runs perfectly fine on a vanilla machine. The game is it's a vertical shoot 'em up game comparable to like I don't know, Battle Squadron or Hypers or stuff like that. But I tried to incorporate modern elements, since people nowadays, they are used to play games on PC or on console and stuff like that, and most of the people, while they still adore the classic games like Hypers, like Battle Squadron, they still they expect modern features. Like, for example, no one would accept a game which has only music or only sound effects, which was pretty common on the classic Commodore Amiga games. So that's why we invested a lot of technical research on how to get the most of music and the best audio and the best gameplay experience. So we also have a couple of gameplay mechanics which are kind of modern. For example, one quite modern gameplay mechanic is that we do not have a life meter. We don't have like 2, 3, 4 lives, whatever. What is a common mechanic in the old games, but we only have the player only has 1 life, and while he plays, he can ramp up his ship with some extra weapons, and every time he's hit, he just loses 1 extra weapon. So this way, the game flow, the game keeps its flow, keeps its vibe. You don't die, you don't get set back to some the start of the stage or something like that. You can keep on playing, and that resembles more the modern kind of gameplay. Don't die too often. The game shouldn't be too frustrating, and these are just 1 or 2 examples of what is modern in this game. So what we tried here was to create a game that blends technical and artist expertise with with a flow experience and a really deep immersion, which really the game really tries to get you captivated and to keep you keep you in the game. And actually, the game consists of 5 stages. Real expert players are able to play through the game in about 20-25 minutes or something. And we recently had an event in Germany called Amiga 40, which had like I think like 1,500 visitors or something, and a couple of people played the game, and one was demonstrating how to play through the game on maximum high score, and he achieved like a 7 million record score, and he was just so deep in the game you couldn't even talk to him, and that's what I wanted to achieve with that game. Real full immersion. It's a remote project, so like many modern development projects, this was done by a core team of 3 people. So the visuals are mainly created by a guy called Kevin Saunders. He's living in Australia. He did most of the pixel art stuff. The music was done by Martin Amann. He's a German guy, and he's living about 500 kilometers from my place. And yeah, basically that's what we did. So we had a couple of calls, a couple of video calls. We used Discord, you know, all these modern tools. The game was in development for like 4 years, about 4 years. It was intended to be finished within 1 year because we already had the expertise from Reshooter, and we also had the visuals finished by the start of the project because the visuals were actually made for another project, or some of the visuals were made for another project. But then when we began developing, we had so many ideas and so many things that we could, so many details that we tried to work on, that it took us actually 4 years to get the game finished. Some technical details. The game is written 100% in machine language or in assembler language. It's written OS friendly, so it keeps the OS in memory and it keeps it active. The reason is simply to make it compatible to almost all machines. Also, this enables us to use some OS features, like, for example, loading the game from whichever device the player wants to play the game from. So you can boot it up from CD-ROM, you can copy it into your RAM drive, you can load it from your HD drive. You can basically use every drive available to boot up and run the game. Also, this way we can use features like, for example, storing high scores to the NVRAM of the CD32, and we could also use any means of controller. But while we developed the game, we decided that most gameplay mechanics, or the gameplay mechanics that we implemented, they only really need one fire button, and that's why we could use the CD32 controller. But when we developed the game, we decided it's probably not even necessary to use a second fire button. The game works perfectly well with just one fire button. I am the project lead. I'm also the coder of the game, and I'm the game designer. And I have my roots in the demo scene on the Amiga, which is I don't know how familiar you are with the European Amiga scene, but demos are a big part of our culture here. And demos are basically, just a display of what the Amiga is capable to do. Also, the Commodore 64, obviously. But I tried to implement some technical things into the game, which are not that common on Commodore Amiga. Before we had them in the game. For example, you probably noticed the kind of 3D-like floor layer we had in the game, which is inspired by a game called Axelay from Konami, which was released on the Super Nintendo console. We have up to 100 sprites on screen. We have up to, let me think, about 30 or 40 blitter objects on screen. It is all runs in 50 frames per second. 50 frames because it's a German production, which means it's intended to be used on a Palm machine. We are using the full palette of Commodore Amiga EGA hardware, which means like up to whatever 16 million colors, but 200 colors on screen at the same time. We have like a local and a global high score table. Local high score table is saved. Global high score table means that when you play the game and you get your score into the high score table, you get like a 9-digit code, 7-digit code, some digits. Anyway, and then you can visit a website called rp3.spieleschreiber.de, and then you can just enter that code, and that is the code for a high score. So there's like a global high score table for an Amiga game, which is kind of unique, I think. The game was released in October 23 at the Amiga 38 event in Germany. It's available in digital and physical boxed so a CD-ROM and a USB flash drive, and you can also download it from amigashop.org at I don't know what's I think the price is 29 euros. I have no idea what that is in US dollars or Canadian dollars. It's worth it, I think. So so 5 reasons why developing this game kind of sucked at times, at least. So development requirements sucked. When I started developing games in '85, or when I started to develop on the Commodore 64 and then switched to the Commodore Amiga in '89 or something, you basically had to have like an Amiga 500 and some pirated tools, and that was all you needed to have to get your development project going. Probably not hard drive was a good idea, but that's about it. Nowadays, it's a little bit more complicated to get into the whole thing. There are so many options you can choose to develop your game. You can actually develop on your old Amiga hardware. You can learn, maintain cross development frameworks that you can download or that you can set up yourself. You need to get to grips with tons of middleware tools. For example, in this case, Reshoot Proxima 3 was developed using a Mac OS with Xcode, which is commonly used for developing iPhone games or iPhone software, but can also be used to develop Amiga games if you tool it up with things like FSUAE and stuff like that. So nowadays it's kind of more difficult because to get into development, because there are so many options. And if you start to learn developing games, it really can overwhelm you because there are like 10, 20, 50 options, and you really need to find out which one is the best for you. And to find that out, you really need to download the stuff, learn that stuff, learn the tools, try to see if they fit your kind of style that you do, your kind of working style, and that's much more complicated than it used to be. On the other hand, I have to say that it's also if you found the tools, if you found a framework that fits your style, and if you were able to set up a framework and customize it to your needs, then it's actually really comfortable to develop an Amiga game nowadays. For example, I mentioned Xcode. I paired Xcode with FSUAE emulator and a cross assembler called Vesm, and I also wrote a couple of custom tools that chained these 3 main tools together, and that meant that finally I could write the source code or edit the source code, and within push just one press of a key, I could init the compilation process, and also started the emulator and test the game at the actual place where I wanted to test it. And it all takes me like 1 or probably 2 seconds, something like that. And that's a huge difference compared to when I developed games in '89, when it took me like a code like for Reshoot Proxima 3, for example, would take me would probably take 5 to or 50 seconds to compile, and then there's a huge chance that it would crash, and you would all get this guru meditation stuff and then reboot the machine. And so therefore development requirements kind of suck, but not really, because if you work if you got the environment you need, you're really in for a comfortable time. Teamwork sucks. Teamwork is merciless. What I mean by that, in the '80s, when you worked with a team, we had remote teams by then too. You worked basically for yourself in the demo scene or in the wherever. You had the occasional phone calls. You sometimes got a letter, something like that. There was no social media. There was no email. there was no internet, nothing like that. You just sent a disk or two every once or twice a week or something like that. There were a couple of events, probably in Europe. In Germany, we had the Commodore shows in Cologne. Commodore 92 was probably the biggest of them, and that meant that most of the time you could actually, focus on developing games or developing demos. Nowadays, it's totally different. You've got tools like Discord, for example, and they are kind of comfortable, and they enable you to, network with people all around the globe, which is great, but it also takes away a lot of time. And that means that if you've got for such a project like Reshoot Proxima 3, which is obviously a spare time project, it's not a full-time project, and you're lucky if you can spend 10 or 15 hours per week to invest into developing such a game. And if you have to spend half of this time into, keeping your contacts happy, then it's a lot of time. And it's really, I found it difficult to find the right balance, to between socializing with the people involved with the project, but also the urge of wanting to develop the game, wanting to, optimize the code and wanting to optimize the colors and, get all these things together that make a great game. And that was a struggle that took me I never learned to really get out of that struggle. Actually, when I was in the process of almost finishing the game, probably half a year before we released it, I decided to quit my job and just fully focus on finishing the Reshoot Proxima 3 project. Not because I thought this was a clever idea, because it certainly is not a clever idea, just because I was frustrated with my daily job at that time. But it helped me, and then I had a couple of months to just focus on a great game, or on a great project, which is project Proxima 3. Community sucks sometimes, or very often actually. Because community is so ruthless. When, especially on the Amiga, people are not used to shell out money for games, at least not pay for modern games, or at least pay for games at all. I don't know about Canada, I don't know about the United States, but here in Europe, we, piracy was huge. I would expect that probably if people claim they have 100 games on Amiga, then probably 98 of them are pirated copies of games, which no one ever invested any money into games on Amiga. And to a certain extent, that's still true. So one of the main issues that I had with communication with the community was how I could dare to charge money for a Commodore Amiga game. That was the first reaction when I announced Reshoot in 2016 and wanted to charge 29 euros for that game. And by that time, everyone was used to buy a game for his iPhone for about probably 5 euros or something like that, 1, 2, 3 euros, next to nothing basically. And by that time in 2016, there was hardly any modern homebrew development scene on Commodore Amiga. So people were not used to, actually pay for games. There were a couple of games released, just two to 5 games, I think, in 2014 and 2015. And they were just released for free, very obviously. But they were not, they were not commercial quality. Granted, Reshoot was not commercial quality too, but I still tried my luck. But these were really very, not very funny, dialogues I had with many people actually, and I never understood why people get angry when you charge money for a game, when they at the same time they are willing to spend 300 euros for an older Pedia game, for example. Pedia was a great game in the old days, released in 1992. And, all these classic games, all these collectors are spending, huge amounts of money, and they're even spending more money on, you know, buying new hardware, you know, buying whatever turbo or accelerator cards, say, or A500 mini or whatever, and but they are hardly willing to spend like a little bit of money on you know, supporting game developers who are working on games right now. So that was kind of interesting discussions I had from 2016 basically until now. But now it's kind of settling now that people see that people understand how much time is needed to get such a game as Proxima 3 going, and how many people are involved. Because I just mentioned like the three core people, Martin and Kevin and myself, but actually there are about 20 people involved all in all, because there's someone who does the cover artwork, there's someone who does, you know, a couple of sound effects, there's someone who does, you know, the layout for the booklet, for the manual, and many more people involved. And that's all these people. It's really you know, it's really nice if the community understands what is it all needed, and all of this costs a little bit of money. You know, that's why I think people really get to understand it more and more. Homebrew development also sucks because the return on investment is kind of laughable, really. I had a discussion with a guy who did a game called Sam's Journey on the Commodore 64 a couple of years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago. You guys are probably aware of that game. It's a pretty recent release, and a great game, a really great game, and it does a lot of things on the Commodore 64 that no one would have thought is possible some years ago. And he told me that for a while he could actually live from the revenue that he did with selling Sam's Journey. And I had like a dream of maybe that's possible in the Commodore Amiga too. Maybe it's possible to sell. Maybe the community is so huge, so large that you could actually achieve the same thing, which was unfortunately not true. So it's more like, you know, there's no return on investment. To give you some real numbers, Reshoot Proxima 3 sold about 900 copies by now, which is great compared to other games, but it's still no return on investment actually, because 900 pieces means that you have a revenue of about 15,000 to 20,000 euros, which sounds like quite a lot, but it's not that much if you imagine that you have what you have to pay. You know, you have to pay the CD-ROM production, you have to pay the manual, you have to pay some actually a lawyer in Germany. You have to pay for all the you know, the events that you visit, and so that all burns up money pretty quickly. So there's actually no real return on investment. Just you know, I know some people are dreaming of, you know, selling like 10,000 copies of a Commodore Amiga game. This is never going to happen. No way. So developing homebrew games could be kind of bad for your health. Actually, in 2016 and 2017, when I released Reshoot, I really felt like this is really exhausting, because, you know, it's the game development process is like with every other game on modern platforms too. So for the last few months before we release, it's really crunch time. You know, you really try to pack all hours available into, you know, polishing and optimizing the game so that it looks and behaves and feels the best you can achieve. And that really means you get a lot of stress. You have a lot of constant high and lows. I was really so I really tried. I really so short of giving up. Probably 3 or 4 weeks before releasing, not Proxima 3 but Reshoot R, when I tested the game on a 6860 CPU, and it did not work at all. It just crashed all the time. I got all kinds of glitches. And I really was, you know, so I had no idea what to do now, because it just felt so great on my basic Commodore Amiga 1200, and then it just broke totally down on an expanded machine. But still, the community expects you to make the game, to create a game that runs on every Commodore Amiga machine available right now. And this is not a Commodore Amiga 500 with no expansions, because nowadays people have all kinds of machines, all kinds of accelerators, all kinds of, also OS tools that might interfere with the game. And every time you get feedback like, why does this game not work with my TCP/IP stack? This really, and I've never tried that. Shit, that again, that's you just felt like the game is in a releasable state now. And then you get that message from one of the testers, and then fuck, I again have to invest like 3-4 days to get to find out what's the reason for that. And that's so many ups and lows, and it's just basically really, really bad for your health. And you really you have to actually, in my case, I've got a family. I've got a daughter she's now 10 years old, my wife, and they sometimes they help me realizing that it's not all about game development. It's more all about having fun with the things you do, and trying to spend the weekends with something totally different than game development. That's why I really think it's a good idea to have some other pillars in your life other than actually developing games. So, Reshoot Proxima 3 is the game you can play on the Commodore Amiga now. This is what you see in the presentation right now is kind of the future. That's what I'm working on right now. This is a game called Reshooter, which is basically the PC port. Sorry to mention PC, but that's just the truth. This is the PC port of Reshoot Proxima 3, because when I released the game and the feedback was so great, I felt like, whoa, probably it's a good idea to port that game to some modern platform and see what happens then. And that's I started that project about 2 years ago, and I tried to release the game, or at least release an early access version of the game by February or March next year. And if anyone wants to wishlist the game on Steam now, please feel invited to do that. So, but if you don't want to do that, but if you want to rather get the game on Commodore Amiga, please feel free to visit www.amigashop.org, where you can order the game. I have to be honest, I have no idea what happens if you order from Canada. I do know that some people do it. I know it's possible. And I do know that Andreas, who manages the shop, does send to Canada, but I have no idea about what's going on with taxes or stuff like that. But I do know it does work, and I think it's probably worth it. So yeah.
Can I interrupt for a second? We have some agreement with the EU up to 50 euros. It's fine, I think.
Great. Now that sounds great, because that's less than the game is actually cost. So yeah, I was told to spend like 30 minutes to talking, and then probably if there are any questions from your side, feel free to ask.
Cool. Me or the
whoever.
Are we done? And you want to take
questions?
questions?
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I was not clear.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Who wants to? Do you guys have any questions about? I do have one, but maybe somebody.
So TPUG this year started up.
I'll translate. Yeah. I won't translate, but I'll because you probably can't hear.
So we set up the TPUG thing. You told me about 2 weeks after you said that we were doing this.
Yeah.
And I went out and bought the game.
Yeah.
Like just like that.
Yeah.
The question is like, what environment was being used to do the testing? You kind of mentioned it.
Yeah.
with some virtual environments, some like not Windows because he's running Mac, but what was the environment set up like so I can get it to run on my Windows 10 machine?
Well, he's asking essentially what would be the best environment to run it other than Amigas, like on a Windows machine, or like what emulation environments? I think you have a Mister too, right?
I haven't missed it. I
Yeah.
haven't put it on there.
That's probably the best option already. Actually, I used the Mister to test the game for a simple reason. The Mister is the only kind of emulation that emulates almost all features of the Commodore Amiga hardware. The only thing that it does not do is high-res sprites. You know, the game uses high-res sprites at very minor places, but it does use them, and the Mister displays them as lower sprites, but it's not noticeable if you don't know about it. It's just me. I do know where to look at, but that's the main difference. Every other mean of emulation, I would always play the game on real hardware, because real hardware is doesn't drop any frames. The game has basically no frame drops at all, except for maybe one or two places in the last stage. And emulation is not really able to convey that sensation of 50 frame gameplay flow. That's especially noticeable on the A500 Mini, which really struggles to keep the frame rate that high. So you either have some more frame drops, or you have some audio issues. So what I would imagine the best looks and feels best on the Mister. Other than that, I would probably set up FSUAE on a medium to high-end PC or Mac. For example, the game was developed on a M2 Mac, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. But still, FSUAE does not. It lacks a couple of very minor features that you cannot experience in the game, which you do experience on real hardware. So Mister is is probably the premium option if you don't have access to real Commodore Amiga.
Excellent. That was actually my question too. Any other questions? Is that a tin box? Is that one a metal box? The Reshoot Proxima 3?
Yeah, it's called the tin box. It was. Yeah. We did like 15 pieces only, and that was for I've got a Patreon website, and the Patreon guys they got that tin box, so it's already not limited anymore because it's sold out, actually, unfortunately. So sorry.
Okay.
But there's the signature edition that you see to the right. That's quite beautiful too. It does have like 2 CD-ROMs, the game CD-ROM and an audio soundtrack CD, and it does have it's a signature, a personal signature of mine, postcard. So it's kind of neat too.
So the port you're doing for Steam is for Reshoot Proxima 3 or for Reshoot the? No,
Proxima 3. Yeah.
Oh,
because Proxima 3, as I mentioned very early in the talk, is it does incorporate already some very kind of unique and modern gameplay elements that work on Commodore Amiga, obviously, but they should also work on basically they make a great game. Regardless of the platform, basically, and that was always the intention with Proxima 3. It should be a great game on Commodore Amiga, but it should be a great game on itself, And as it kind of worked, actually, Proxima 3 was used for esports events even in Germany, which I did not really expect because that was not my intention. But the scoring mechanics, they obviously work pretty well for some people to use it for competition purposes, and if that's true on Commodore Amiga, probably it's true on PC too. That's it's a project. I will see what happens with it, but yeah, it's Proxima 3 on PC, but beefed up a lot. I at first I just wanted to do like a basic port, but now I'm it's more like a 2.5D totally enhanced gameplay experience. So it will be you know, some it will have the most basic elements from Proxima 3, but the visuals will be totally different, and the sound will be awesome, really awesome music.
Out of curiosity, what graphic or what game engine are you using?
Out of curiosity, what game engine are you using?
Unity.
Unity.
I got a question. Since he develops it on a Mac, is there going to be like a Mac version?
Wait a second. I'm gonna move this so he can see you. Oh, I don't think he can see you. He's asking if there's gonna be a Mac version.
Yeah, of course.
When do you plan on like releasing it? Do you have like an expected date?
Do you have a release date for that? For Mac?
Not really. You know, the plan is to release it on March, probably March 26th. So in about four months, something like that. It's almost finished. We are, you know, in the polishing stages. So all elements are there. Music is there. Visuals are all there, and it's now on me to, you know, put the tiny details and polish them up. And that's what we're doing right now. So so March will be early access, probably with only 3 stages out of 5, and the full release probably mid of next year. So yeah, just you know, wishlist the game, and you will I will keep you updated on what is going on.
Do you think this is gonna run on the Steam machine and things like that with no issues, or?
There's no reason why it shouldn't. You know, it's again, this is a game which has very it just uses one fire button. It does not use tiny fonts or something like that. It's really a basic arcade game, and it really should run on almost every hardware available. Yeah.
Any other questions? Let's see what time it is, because I have questions, but well, one more question.
Yeah.
So because I saw you showed a screenshot of Discord, and you were doing, I think, the what do you call this, the stuff for the 3D, the textures for the 3D. Were you doing that still on Amiga software?
No, I'm not really sure even what Kevin used for rendering 3D objects. You know, the secret of the Reshoot Proxima 3 visuals really was to, you know, get modern animations, which means a lot of frames, you know, rotations that really feel like really smooth rotations. That's one of the things that the Commodore Amiga is not really good at, because it doesn't have any rotate feature or anything. It cannot rotate or zoom sprites or splitter objects. It just can't do that. So you have to find other ways to emulate that kind of sensation that you are used to see on modern games, you know. And we did that by using I think it was Blender. And we basically rendered basic objects on Blender and then hand pixeled them, because, you know, we wanted to have that, you know, that handcrafted look and feel to it. Also, for the visual effect layer, you know, the game consists basically of a foreground layer with all the objects and the environment, and of a second layer. Most of the game uses like a dual playfield graphics mode, and the second layer is more like a natural environmental layer, effect layer. And I try to find pictures from actual nature, for example, from of the sun, because the first stage of the game is, you know, where you're flying above some sun, basically the sun. And I try to find pictures of that, and then handcraft the pixels to my needs. So, and the same is true for the second stage. Second stage is set in, you know, flying through the skies, through an environment which is basically floating in the skies. And I try to find pictures of clouds which are working well on Commodore Amiga with I think it's using 12 colors, and also a transparent layer, which you know, gives like an alpha effect, which is not something that you see very often on the Amiga. You know, transparent clouds flying over the environment layer, basically. And so it's most of the stuff is really handcrafted. Yeah, and yeah, but concept art was or concepts were done using Blender.
Okay, that looks really beautiful. Well, we'll have to finish here because we're out of time, but I love this presentation. Thank you very much, Richard.
It was a pleasure, and thank you very much for having me. This is actually my first talk in Canada. It was my first remote talk. It was my first talk in the English language. So sorry, you know,
No,
it's not my mother language, you know. But I tried my best. I think I
pretty
hope
good. German is close to English. Isn't English a Germanic language?
Well, they're really close to them, you know. So but it was really fun, and so it was really a pleasure, and it was really I'm really happy that you invited me, and I wish probably next year I will find time to get to Canada. It's such a beautiful place. I just visited once Montreal for business for 2 or 3 days, but it was so beautiful people, and a really nice time there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Richard. Okay, talk to you later. I'll hang up and I'll send you the recording later. We can talk about it. Okay.
That would be great. Okay. Yeah, have a good show. See you. Bye.
Thank you.